In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to dominate Zone Wars like a creative warrior. Now, I won't say I'm an insane Zone Wars player by any means. However, I have been playing Zone Wars for a very long time and have competed in many local tournaments that I believe I have a pretty good understanding of how Zone Wars work. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. Tell me if you guys like this video, as this is definitely something I've never done before. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. The first little thing that you should be doing in Zone Wars is establishing a good start. Typically, you want to side jump at the start by placing an extended cone using that little boost to jump and catch yourself with the floor and stair. Afterwards, you can do 3 to 4 90s depending on the situation to initiate your start. If you have height in Zone Wars, you have a massive advantage because you can initiate the fights better while your opponent reacts to whatever pain you're distributing to them. They would have to use a decent amount of mats to retake height if they ever do so, and they would also have to rely on a couple of different mechanics just to take height from you. So, establishing a decent start is the first and most reliable way to dominate a Zone Wars match. Now, there are situations where you don't get height even if you have a good start. Now, this is where you have to play a little smarter. Like I said earlier, sometimes you just have to react to whatever your opponent is doing. If you want to become a good Zone Wars player, then you need to listen to this. If you're on low ground, you can do 2 things. 1. You can chop safely by breaking down your opponent's builds without them seeing you. You can easily do this by placing a cone above and only going for smart chops. Smart chops basically means you're aiming to only chop a certain amount of builds that's connected to the guy on height. You're not directly breaking down the whole thing, which gives your opponent more time to react to the chop. 2. You can abuse the angles of low ground. There are some cases where the guy on height will also react to you. What I like to do is do running side jumps and hit chip damage on the guy on height. It's important to note that once you hit around 60 to 70 damage, you should continue the pressure without taking any counter damage. So you can either start taking height or chopping, which is arguably the best time to chop, and by that point, you're already ahead or at an equal playing field. Here are some key things to practice if you're going to practice for Zone Wars specifically. Aim is by far the most important because if you're hitting more shots and you're doing more damage, then it doesn't matter if you're playing low ground or high ground, you already have a significant advantage. Then you would also want to be working on both piece control and basic building mechanics. Basic things like tarping, conservative retakes, and just overall basic fundamental building techniques are very important in Zone Wars. I would also personally watch pro player Reet because he's one of the best Zone Wars player currently. Watching the way he fights and plays around his opponents is a good way to learn how to actually dominate Zone Wars without using too many mats. The main issue with pro players like Peterbot is that they're kind of too good for us to follow them. So Reet is one of those players that doesn't rely on pure mechanics to actually dominate Zone Wars. So watching him is a good start, but if you can perform whatever Peterbot is doing, then definitely do so. Some other important tips for Zone Wars include utilizing your heals as soon as possible. As soon as you take damage, you definitely want to use these instantly. There's no use in saving them. You also want to be utilizing your SMG more than your AR, especially if you're chopping. You can use your shotgun for long range if you want to inflict chip damage and you want it to be guaranteed. Spraying is okay, but it's not used in many situations just because of how inconsistent it is. If you're against faster players, it will definitely be harder to find situations where you can spray. And of course, you definitely want to be taking height if you're playing a 1v1 Zone Wars if you haven't already. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys learned something new, and if you did, then make sure to subscribe. If you haven't already, smash that like button. Otherwise, that's it for me, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.